Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Harris. We're going to be talking about Sunburst and the link to Golden SAML. A lot of this video is what we showed at the RSA conference in 2021, which we were not allowed to actually give more details until very recently. And I think it's just time to share this to the world. We have a lab environment that you'll see shortly. It has an Active Directory and Active Directory Federation service. We have that linked to Azure. But first, we're going to double click into the supply chain server. This could be any impacted supply chain server. We're just going to be starting, obviously, with the assumption the supply chain server, in this case, impacted by Sunburst and that tainted supply chain. It's running with a service account that has privileges on the domain controller. Why? Because it's actually used to patch the domain controller. Again, there could be so many other use cases that we should have shown or could have shown. But I'm going to first do SAML reconnaissance. It's one of my favorite attacks, and it shows you how you can use PowerSploit to do something called SAML recon, look at certain machines and figure out who's the administrators, who's a member of the local admin group. If I could become one of these people, I could then laterally move. Here you see we actually are a local admin to that STS server. That's the Active Directory Federation server, and therefore I already know I could laterally move there if I want to. But more specifically, I have to figure out who is the ADFS service owner, who is actually what process, which credentials used to run that process. And there you saw the SVC_ADFS. So now I know I could laterally move to ADFS. I also know who I have to be. I'm going to do something called DC sync attack. Again, if you have domain admin credentials, you can perform this attack. I'm going to go become SVC_ADFS. So when I do laterally move, I could become that process owner and therefore dump certificates. This is stuff Microsoft said was technically impossible or extremely hard to do. As you can see, we're using Mimikatz, we're using PowerSploit, open source technology, and you'll see one other tool we're going to use later on. So let's laterally move. Again, we already know local admin of the ADFS server is the same one. Thanks to, again, Microsoft, we don't even need to know the password. I could use restricted admin mode with my current session, and that allows me to just RDP into the other machine, again, without even knowing the password for the account that I found myself on that service account, in this case, SolarWinds. So again, thank you, Microsoft. Again, now we're just showing you who am I. I'm still the supply chain server user, and so forth. And now we want to do pass the hash as that ADFS process owner, the credential I did DC sync attack against. I now want to spawn a command shell as that user. So I'm going to inject the NTLM hash I stole earlier, thanks again to Mimikatz. And sorry again for removing pretty fast here. Again, I'm going to take that service account, the SAMR username, the NTFS account, inject it here, run this command. And I'm going to be able to launch this over on the other machine. And now I just became the SVC user. As you can see, I did stage Mimikatz here. I'm not going to show you how to evade antivirus. Antivirus in this case has been disabled. But again, if you're more than a power script kiddie, you know how to kind of evade antivirus anyways. So now I'm in a command prompt as the SVC_ADFS user. Now I'm going to actually dump the credentials, the certificates in memory via a FireEye tool called ADFS dump. Again, you have to be the process owner of ADFS to do this. And I could see the WS Federation. I could see who the trust is with. Obviously, in this case is Microsoft Online, that of Azure AD. This also impacts M365. And here's the big signing key. And more importantly, here's also the private key. I now have both. I have the private key and I have the token signing key. Again, Microsoft said this is nearly impossible to pull off. Again, thanks to FireEye for, again, their tool. It's not very hard to figure out. Now I have all the data. Now I'm actually going to manipulate that data back on my Kali Linux machine. I'm done talking ADFS. I'm done talking Active Directory and never have to interact with them ever again. I'm now going to do some massaging of this data and get it into a ready so I can use another tool called ADFS spoof. Again, doing some transcoding, nothing real magical here. In this case, I'm moving some dashes. In the other case, I'm actually reversing base 64, decoding base 64. Once I have that, I have then binary data to then again pass to ADFS spoof, so I can create a SAML object that Azure will accept, thinking it actually came from ADFS. So I'll say that one more time. I just compromised the master key, if you will, the golden SAML key from ADFS, which is used to say, hey, that's Andrew. You can now authenticate against Azure. Here's the command I use for ADFS spoof. I am generating a ticket as a person, in this case, R. Marlowe. Why'd I pick R. Marlowe? It's just a random person I used, and I know that person has global admin in Azure. Again, I could bypass multi-factor authentication. Again, I can bypass multi-factor authentication because all of this activity happens the second you provide Azure or any other cloud service a SAML, it assumes you did your due diligence and did MFA. I'm copying this token. I'm going to put it in Burp Suite, and I'm going to inject that token into one of the variables that we pass then into this request, again, pointed towards Microsoft Online, which is where that WS Federation exists. I'm writing that root of trust with a properly forged SAML authentication object, and Azure is going to accept it. I would then get granted access to everything Marlowe has access to, including all of Azure, including all of Office 365, including all security products on top of Azure, including Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and any other application. So this is where it gets a little weird, where you can actually plant backdoors into the cloud once you have this level of access. So if someone does stumble on, hey, this person compromised their ADFS, well, now you have another injection point in the cloud itself. But here I'm just showing you that I have access. I have a legitimate credential with a legitimate session with that of Azure. We performed successfully the golden SAML ticket. Again, I have no idea what the heck R. Marlowe's password is. I had no idea what the password is for the SolarWinds service account. We can enumerate, hunt for data in Office 365. We can manage users if we wanted with the right credential. But again, I can also pivot to Azure and manage the cloud. This is where things get really interesting. Azure Arc allows you to onboard systems to Azure and use the same RBAC model, the same identity plane as Azure for your on-premises. If that is the case, I could do something called custom scripts extension, CSC, and run any arbitrary code on any of those machines. Again, something Microsoft said that they neutered a bit to prevent some other backdoors to be created, as I'll show you is the case. So what I just did is I'm about to launch a custom scripts extension with an already built command, and all that command is going to do is build, as you'll see, it's going to add a user to the local admins group, and it's going to add that person to domain admins. So essentially I'm running and targeting the domain controller, then again creating a backdoor. So I started on premises, I performed the golden SAML attack, I got access to the cloud, and now I'm inserting myself from the cloud back on premises. Why? It shows you the intricate nature of doing incident response. Are you sure you're actually about to neuter or evict the adversary? If you're not aware of all these backdoors, you will not have confidence in that eviction plan. And again, that's the exact commands I ran. It's two simple commands. Add that user to the administrators group. Since I'm talking to the domain controller, that's how I get access. So again, even if I get kicked off on premises, the fact that I now have access to their cloud via this R. Marlowe golden SAML attack, I can get back on premises if I wanted to. There's other ways to do this via Office 365, something called the ruler attack. But the perimeter of what we're so used to between cloud and on-premises, especially with the fact you can now bypass MFA, these lines completely blur. And again, I'm going to show you this person actually got created on the domain controller. I highly recommend you you checking this work, doing this yourself, learning more about the trust relationship between on-premises and the cloud. And hopefully you learned something. Please do reach out to me by website cyberresponse.com and reach me at andrew.f.harris@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone.